My Lord, my Lord. The best part of today, the best part of tomorrow is always remembering today. So we have a double whammy today. We have the full moon in Scorpio. And at the same time, today is day 1 of week 5 of the Count of Omer, where we get to explore my favorite Hod, humility. Why is Hod my favorite? Because you made me to be the most humble human ever. You, my Lord, humble me. Shit. But not just any humility. We're exploring the Hesed of Hod, the love of humility. I love being humble. Now, in my mind, I'm hearing a voice saying, that's not how you be humble. Humble people don't call themselves humble. Why not? Hashem, can you tell me why humble people don't call themselves humble? Because it could come off as arrogant. Right, but if it can come off as arrogant, if it comes off as arrogant, that doesn't mean that it's arrogant. It just comes off that way. Right? And who's it coming off as arrogant to? And if it is coming off as arrogant to anyone, whose fault is that? Is that my fault, or is that the other person's fault for taking it the wrong way? Well, that depends. Are you trying to come off as arrogant, or are you trying to come off as humble? Can I answer your question with a question? Of course. There's nothing preventing you from answering a question with a question. I need your help. I can't do this on my own. I want to come off as humble to you. I don't want to. I'm not concerned. I don't want to concern myself with whether I come off as humble to anyone else. Because the way I look at it is that if I have to dumb myself down for the sake of what other people think of me, is that being humble, or is that something else? Because I'm thinking, because the way I'm thinking about it, is that if I dim myself down for the sake of what someone else is going to perceive me to be, is that the right way to serve you? By pretending to be something less than what I am? And are we supposed to all define humble the same way? For instance, what does that mean to be humble? Taking credit, boasting, what isn't humble? How about that? Boasting, obviously. Taking credit for your work. By implying that I made myself great when it was you that made me great. And if you made me great, shouldn't I express that greatness in such a way that it's obvious that you did it and not me? And if the intention is to make this world a more godly place, should I sit back and make believe that you didn't make me great? Because if I'm your greatest work, and I pretend that I'm not great for the sake of not coming off as arrogant, then how is that glorifying you? Yeah, I'm great. Yes, I'm amazing. Yes, I'm perfect. But I had no say in it. I can't help it. I didn't add, well, I was gonna say I didn't ask to be great, but that's not true. I want to be great. I want to be special. I want to be perfect. But I can't do it on my own. I need you to help me do it. I need you to do it for me. I was even thinking, I was just writing about this. Even if you and I are co-creating together, I'm only doing what you tell me to do. And if you tell me to own my greatness, own it and wear it. Then the most humble thing I can do for you show how great you are by demonstrating how great I am. Because I'm a product of you, not the other way around. You don't need me. I need you more than you need me. That's assuming that you even need me at all.
All right.
How you doing, my friend?
Okay, dig it in.
But then this brings us back to being concerned in any way, shape, or form about what other people think. Is that a great thing to do? Is that a humble thing to do? So the idea that came to me this morning when I was writing, the thing that came to me this morning, and I really like this idea. It's scary, but that's why I think it's a great idea. The idea that you gave me. And being that the idea came from you, I know it was a great idea. Is to be and exercise my humility in as many ways as possible, even at the risk of coming off as arrogant. Because this brings me back to what we learn in the Quran and in Torah. Don't steer to the left and don't steer to the right. But at the same time, how do we know what's too far to the left and what's too far to the right if we don't explore those paths and trust you to keep us on the straight and narrow? So maybe I shouldn't be so arrogant as to think that I know how to define what it means to be humble better than you do. And maybe I should just trust you in guiding me towards embodying my most humble self. So an example that was coming to me while I was writing was King David, peace be upon him. The historian Joseph Flavius, he wrote that you made everything easy for David. But there was a reason why you made everything easy for David. You made everything easy for David because David loved you more than David loved himself. Because David was willing to put his own life on the line for the sake of you, of your glorification. And for that reason, you glorified David. I'm thinking specifically of when David was leading the parade that brought the ark to Jerusalem, and how David was dancing in the streets like a cuckoo bird. And when they finally arrived, his wife, Micah, one of his wives, Micah came to him and said, "This is not the behavior of a king. You shouldn't be dancing around like that." And David didn't give a shit. David's pride and love for you was so great that he didn't care if he looked kingly or not. He didn't care what anybody thought about him. And he was right in doing so, because he was serving as a prime example of what it means to serve you with great joy and enthusiasms. Which you command us to do. If you're going to serve with optimum joy and enthusiasm, with a big grin on your face, even if it means dancing around like an idiot and everybody looking at you like you're a nut. Because we aren't doing it for them, we're doing it for you. And it benefits them by us benefiting you. Because it should serve as a reminder to other people. This is how the king glorifies his top servants. I'm being reminded of the book of Esther, where Haman, enemy of the Jews, the Amalekite, Haman, bleh. But on the day that he went to King Xerxes, to trigger his plan to end the life of the Jew, Mordecai the Jew. Morning, guys. When he went before the king, and the king said to him, "How does a king honor a man who saved the king's life? How does a king honor a man that he wants to honor?" And Haman left. I'm assuming Haman thought that he was the one that was about to be honored, but he listed off all of these wonderful things, all of these wonderful deeds that the king can do for someone, which I assume he wanted it done for himself. Dress him in royal garbs that was worn by the king. Sit him upon a steed, a royal steed that was sat upon by the king. Put a royal diadem on his head. And have him paraded around the city. While the one guiding him around is announcing, "This is what happens. This is how the king honors a man who honors the king." And King Xerxes said to Haman, "Very good. Now fetch all of these things and do what you just said for Mordecai the Jew." And that is what you did for David. Despite his transgression with Bathsheba, Which reminds me of the infamous day, the infamous battle that was lost by King David's army for the sake of ensuring that Uriah died. So as perfect as King David was, he allowed his lust to get the better of him. But, as we know, once he had found out that that battle was lost, he began to pen a letter to his nephew, reminding him of the value of studying the failures of the past. Because by studying the failures of the past, we can find our mistakes and rectify them. We can see how the enemy defeated us last time. And if we know how the enemy defeated us last time, we know their game plan. So what was the thing that knocked David off that top tier? Was his lust. Never fuck your brother over for the sake of a woman. if I may be so coarse as to say, never fuck your brother over just to get your dick wet. Unless it be your will. Which it was. And I believe that you wanted David to fall for that trap. I think you wanted David to fall for the pussy trap so that your servant, me, could see the mistake that he made and not make that same mistake. I mean, we could argue that forbidden union between David and Bathsheba did breed King Solomon. Peace be upon him. But if we continue looking into the future of Israel and what happened with Solomon and what happened with Rehoboam, which all ultimately brings us to the downfall of the kingdoms. We can then ask ourselves, we can ask you, what would have happened had David and Bathsheba not did what they did? What could have David's rule looked like? Is it possible that had what happened not happened, that the kingdom would never have been divided? And David would have led a worldwide conquest similar to Alexander the Great? Did David have the potential to do greater things than Alexander the Great? But there would have been no Alexander the Great if David didn't fall. What are you thinking? Well, I'm thinking about I'm thinking about Mashiach. Mashiach, the conqueror. I'm thinking about Mashiach from the line of David and Ephraim. I'm thinking about Mashiach from the line of David and Ephraim doing greater things than Alexander the Great. Maybe, I don't want to say maybe. Why don't I want to say maybe? Because well, why don't you say maybe this way you don't come off as knowing God and his intentions better than you really do. All right, fair enough. Well, maybe we can assume that one of the reasons why it was so integral for the history of man that David failed in the way that he did, that he succeeded in failing in the way that he did, so that human history would play out exactly the way that it does, giving rise to Alexander the Great, giving rise to Caesar, so that 2,000 years later, King Mashiach can look back on the achievements of all those men, those great men, because those were great men who did great things. I've been reminded, I'm seeing Yoda in my mind. War does not make men great. No, but the intention does. But these were godless men, pagan men. What if it were a godly man, a godly Jew for that matter, who had that same vision as Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great? Whose intention is ultimately to spread your greatness. But then let's come back to it and humble that down a little bit, that it would be your intention for his intention to be to spread your greatness. Because despite whatever congregation we're talking about, whatever Abrahamic congregation or sub-congregation of what congregation, you're very clear when it comes to the rules of engagement, when it comes to war. And you're very clear also in that the intention is to spread the boundaries of the kingdom of Israel. It's just that I would make the case that we never got to that point. We never got to a place of stability within our own boundaries, within our own borders, that it would make sense to expand the borders. We could barely control what we had in the first place. But this is bringing me back to yesterday's video where we were talking about the importance of why Israel had to fall in the first place. Why the entire nation had to fail, succeed at failing. You dump down all the rules, all the protocols, all the procedures onto many people who couldn't handle the responsibility of it, so that in the future, all of that responsibility can fall on one man. Who has the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the mind to understand why things failed, why things had to fail. Not why things failed, but why things succeeded at failing. Because back then, there was no Edison. So there would have been no reason for anyone to relate failure with success. And even today, that's a challenging thing. It's the most arrogant thing, I would argue, to say that any failure is a bad thing. Why? Well, look at Edison. He failed 1,000 times before he got one working light bulb. And look at us today. Got light bulbs everywhere. If not for that one success, that final success, which was predicated on 1,000 other successes, then we wouldn't be where we are today. If we weren't where we are today, I wouldn't be able to make this equation right now. I'm being reminded of the Communist Manifesto. I don't believe in the myth that communism doesn't work. I believe that the only way communism doesn't work is if you're not involved in it. I believe that you, my Lord, Supreme Grand Master of the universe, are the only one who can make communism great again. Even if that means to take the advice, to take the teachings of Master Aristotle and form a dialectical syllogism by way of extrapolating the primary principles of communism and marrying them to the primary principles of your grand vision for the Kingdom of Israel, the original Kingdom of Israel. That's laid out in Torah. See, because all we need is a blueprint. All we need is a blueprint to build from. And your Torah gives us that blueprint. The word corporatocracy is coming to my mind because you know what? That's another thought that you put in my head while I was writing. Well, I remember a vision that you showed me a long time ago. For a potential one world order where we marry a corporate entity to a religious entity to a governing entity. We take all the best parts of a corporation, of a religion, and a government and marry it into one super conglomerate. A religion that pays taxes. A corporation where the employees pay the company. A government that pays taxes to the people. A corporation where the employees pay the company. And a religion where the entire congregation are the priests. And you are the Pope. And the Emperor. And the CEO. These are stupid ideas. Are they? They're coming from you. Why do I want to take credit for any of this stuff? So I could be glorified? Oh my God, that sounds amazing. I love the idea of being glorified. I was explaining to somebody one day that the service that you provide to me is keeping me humble by allowing my ego to flare the fuck up. Your service to me, in exchange for my service to you, is that you serve as an ego regulator. You let me blow it up as big, inflate it, and gorge it like a swollen tick. But then instead of popping the tick, you help me juice it so that it can learn to breathe on its own and inhale and exhale. Because a healthy ego is not an ego that is beaten into shape or made to feel bad about itself. The worst thing you do for an ego is make it feel bad about itself. And that the ego is of divine origin. Just like all of your creations. What? Oh. Then the ego is best is best a servant to you when you allow the ego to run wild. But in a controlled manner, because you're the one holding the leash on the ego. And if you're holding the leash on my ego, I can't let it run as far as it wants. It can only go as far as you'll let it. So, even though I see myself sitting on the throne at the center of the universe, that's only because you put my ego there. It just happens to be that's exactly where I want to sit. That's exactly where I see myself. That's where I've always seen myself. You know, I was opening up one of my old books. I made a really brief video. Yeah, really brief. It was only an hour long. That was demonstrating how I go about my journaling system, the journaling and review system. And how it's all predicated on the lunar phases. So today, once we're done with this, being that it's a Scorpio full moon, I have to go back to last week's journals and review and reflect and write a commentary on last week's first quarter moon in Leo. That we can see how things have evolved over this last week. After we're done with that, we're going to go back to reread, reflect, review, and write commentary on the journal entry for the Taurus new moon, Rosh Chodesh Iyar. And see how things have evolved from there. But during that video I was demonstrating how I set up all the journals by solar placement, by lunar placement, how I have tabs that separate all of the lunar Sabbaths for easy access. And I ended up taking out an old journal from 2018, and I opened it up to a random page that had a tab in it that designated a lunar Sabbath. And the first passage that I read was, "You are the center of the universe." This brings me back to something we were writing about on Rosh Chodesh Adar, which is the Pisces new moon, this most recent Pisces new moon. At the time, under your advisement, I was reading the Sabbath Epistle by Rabbi Abraham's Ibn Ezra. And during one of the chapters, I saw where he was giving a breakdown of the structure of the universe. He said something. He related it back to the concept of the center point of the circumference. Which is something that's reflected a few times over the course of history in different works. Because that center point that lives at the center of the circumference of the circle tends to pop up quite a bit. And it plays a heavy role due to its importance. If the sun is the center of the solar system, then I am the center of the universe. I'm reminded about this time last year. Yeah, it might have just been this time last year, where we were reading La Vita Nova by Dante Alighieri, which serves as a, God, I gotta pee. Why don't you say piss like a man? Because I say pee. Do you sit down when you pee? No. Oh my God. Hurry, 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 hurry. Hurry, 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 hurry. Yeah, this looks like a good spot. Be right back. We were reading La Vita Nova, The New Life by Dante Alighieri. You mispronounced his name. Nah. Which is an autobiography that he compiled based on his writings as a younger man, which detail the relationship he had, or didn't have rather, with his bond with the woman Beatrice, who would serve as his guide in Dante's Inferno and the Divine Comedy. By way of La Vita Nova and learning about his personal experiences, we learned that Dante is actually a prophet. And more than one time, he's visited by your angels. And you, who show him glimpses of the future. But in one of his visions, he's visited by Mashiach. And it's a little bit of a scattered dream where Mashiach says to him, I am the center point of the circle from which all lines from the circumference are equal. But you are not. Now, if we know anything about Dante's journey, Dante's journey is about how he's a scaredy cat. Even in even once we get into the Divine Comedy, one of the primary themes is how Virgil is trying to toughen him up. Because he's a scaredy cat. But this is reflected even more profoundly in La Vita Nova, where he can't even talk to this woman. Anyone who's ever read the Divine Comedy knows how deeply and madly in love he is with Beatrice, but you probably wouldn't know that they never spoke. They never once had, "Hi, I'm Dante. Hi, I'm Beatrice." It never happened. They knew each other. They knew of each other. They had the same circle. But every time that Beatrice was around him, I'm using a South Park reference. Whenever the little kid Stan was around Wendy Testaberger, he would throw up. Bleh! That's how Dante was whenever Beatrice came around. He just... Then on top of that, when they were in their 20s, he had a vision of her. He had been in love with her since he first saw her, which was around, I think they were both around the age 9 when he first saw her. But it was in his early 20s where he had a vision of her dying. And I think that had such an impact on him that he couldn't even interact with her for the sake that he knew what was going to happen to her, but he just couldn't bring himself to tell her, to be with her. But had their relationship been anything other than what it was, then we wouldn't have had the Divine Comedy, where they are finally reunited. After a couple decades, and Dante his balls finally dropped after getting a first-hand tour through hell. That toughened him up. Sorry, the struggle's real. I've been there. I know what that's like. To be afraid to talk to a lady. Struggle's real. Now, at the same time around that same time where I was reading La Vita Nova is shortly after I started working with Aristotle and Plato for the sake of resurrecting the Hellenist Jew, the Hellenist Jewish soul, the Hellenist Jew neshama. Nefesh, yeah. The Hellenist Jew aspect of the neshama. It was around that time that I also started to dip my toes. I dipped my toes into Euclid, the geometrist. And Euclid's Elements, to be specific. And the reason for that is I have a hardcover. I've mentioned this before, but I have a hardcover copy of Einstein's theory of special relativity, and I want to be able to go through that whole book and understand it. But similar to how if we read the book of Matthew in the New Testament, where Rabbi Jesus makes a reference to Jonah, the prophet Jonah, which is meant as like a hard stop for the reader. Stop here and go reread or read for the first time the story of Jonah. This way, everything else that's about to take place makes more sense to you. In Einstein's first essay, in my version, my copy of his theory of special relativity, he makes a reference to Euclid, implying that if you want to understand the rest of this book, you must have at least a foundational understanding of Euclid and what he was doing. So I promptly shut the book and downloaded all 13 of Euclid's Elements. I didn't get that far, don't worry about it. I got some time. By your grace, my lord. So I forget how it's worded. Hold on. I got it on my phone. Because you never know when things like this, you never know when you need to pull up a Euclid quote. So it's wise. It's wise to no, don't worry, it's not trouble at all. There it is. There it is. The 13 books of the elements. So, oh yeah, okay. It's already open to that page. So, in book 1, he lays out geometric definitions that are going to serve later on, because you have to know these concepts before we can move on to the bigger stuff. But it is definition 15 and 16 that stood out in my mind, because I had worked with Euclid prior to reading La Vita Nova. Okay, so that's important. Definition 15. A circle is a plane figure contained by one line such that all straight lines falling upon it from one point among those lying within the figure are equal to one another. Which is a little bit confusing, because I remember when I first read that, I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And it's obvious now, but it didn't become obvious until I read definition 16. And the point, right? So it says, right, I'll reread it again so you're with me. A circle is a plane figure contained by one line such that all the straight lines falling upon it from one point among those lying within the figure are equal to one another. 16. And the point is called the center of the circle. So of all the points that we could draw inside of a circle, only that one point, only from that one point in the center is every single line drawn out towards the circumference equal to one another. So now fast forward a couple weeks when I was reading La Vita Nova, and Mashiach says to Dante, wait, hold on, let me see, I might actually have it open to that. Because if that's the case, I'll just read it in his own words. Oh yeah, I have it on my phone. Because you never know. Do I not? Yeah, it's right there. What are you doing? Nah. It's alright. What Mashiach says to Dante is, I am the center point of the circumference from which all lines are equal. From which all lines that are drawn to it are equal, but you are not. Meaning you are not ready. You got a long way to go, little boy. I am who you want to be. You are who I was. But the work that you're doing is going to bring me into actualization. Because not many people, I don't know if anyone knows this. I don't know how many people don't know this. But the prophecy of Mashiach is in Dante's Inferno. Dante knew about Mashiach. Because the prophecy of Mashiach is written, inscribed on the front gates of Inferno. You have that on your phone too? No, I don't. I have it at home though. I got a couple versions of it. A couple copies. But you know the one, abandon all hope, ye who enter. That's just the last line in about a 12 line prophecy that's inscribed right in the front gates. Well, Lord, can you help me try to remember that? I'm the first creation before all other creations. My Creator made me to be the sorrow and suffering to the great city. Something like that. If you haven't read the Divine Comedy at this point, I would recommend going and picking it up. It's a hell of a journey. Womp womp. So when Mashiach is saying this to Dante, it clicked in my head. Hey, I know that. I know what he's talking about. My Lord, why did I just need to see that? Why did I need to see that? Why did that have to happen exactly the way that it did? Why did I see Euclid talk about it and now I'm seeing Mashiach talk about it to Dante? I remember that night I went out for a walk to think about this because this was like really boggling my mind. I don't remember if we recorded that night. Maybe we might have recorded. But I remember when we were on our way home, as I was walking up to the house, I saw a vision. You showed me the symbol, the sigil for the sun, the astrological sigil of the sun, which is a circle with a dot at the very center. And the sun is ruled by Leo, or the sun rules Leo, which looks like the symbol for Leo looks like a little sperm, but it also looks like the waveform, the waveform path of the sun around the earth, where it goes up and down, up and down. That's what it looks like. It's not exact, I'm just saying it looks like it. And then we all know Leo's a lion. And the symbol of the house of Judah is the lion. No, the Lion of Israel, I'm sorry. And now that I'm remembering it, well, now you're reminding me? Why are you reminding me of this? Just say it. In Purgatory, I only got halfway through Purgatory, but it's almost around the halfway point of Purgatory where Dante and Virgil, they meet an angel who has been waiting for Dante for a long time. He didn't know he was waiting for Dante, but he says, I've been waiting for you. My master gave me these keys to open this gate. He gave me these keys to give to someone who needed to open this gate, and you seem to be the guy, so here. And I believe when Dante and Virgil open that gate and they walk through, they come to this bas relief, and the image shifts. At first it's King David, peace be upon him, dancing through the streets, leading the parade, bringing the ark into Jerusalem. But then it shifts into a Roman emperor. I forget his name. I think not Titus. I forget what his name was. But if I remember correctly, as they continue on that journey, shortly after the vision of David, Dante comes up to a couple souls, and he notices King Saul, David's predecessor, King Rehoboam, his grandson, the son of Solomon, and Holofernes, a man named Holofernes. Holofernes? I don't know how to pronounce it. I pronounce it however I want. Holofernes. But what's interesting about the three of those guys being together is that if you never read the book of Judith, then you don't know who Holofernes is. Holofernes is from the book of Judith, which isn't in the Tanakh. But it tells the story of this Jewish woman named Judith, who single-handedly defeats a battalion from the Assyrian army that came to conquer a Jewish city. I forgot the name of the city. It wasn't Bethlehem. It was a smaller city. But when the army came, they encircled the town, and they were starving the people out because they cut off their water supply, and the people were starving. They were thirsty, and they made a demand of God. God, we're giving you 5 days. We can't survive much longer than 5 days. If we don't get help within 5 days, we have to surrender. And when Judith learned about that, she said, fuck it. I'm going to go take care of things on my own. So she got herself all prettied up. Because prior to this, she was mourning the death of her husband. But this happened at just the right time to wake her up so that she can answer her calling. How you doing, my friend?
Morning.
So she took off her mourning clothes, and she dressed herself up, balled the fuck out, and she took one of her slaves, and they left the city and entered the encampment of the Assyrian army, where she told them that she was going to defect and help them conquer the city. Holofernes was the general of that army, but because of how beautiful that Beatrice was, he was obsessed with her. So he allowed her certain freedoms, such as every night she was allowed to take her slave and go out of the army encampment and pray. So one night, he did this in exchange for the information, because she was, like I said, she was going to help them she was going to betray her brothers and sisters. So she said. So one night, Holofernes, he threw a wine party because he had the intentions on sleeping with Judith. And what better way to get her into bed than to throw a wine party, get her drunk, and then get her into bed. So he drank himself pissed stupid and ended up passing out. While he was passed out, and after all of his servants left, it was just him and Judith in the tent, she took one of his scimitars off the wall and fucking chopped his head off. I think it took 2 whacks to get the head clean off. At that point, she grabbed her slave girl. They put his head into a bag. And as per their usual nightly ritual, they went out to go do their prayers and just walked right out of the camp. But this time they didn't come back. They went back to the city gates. And eventually when they got home and they were welcomed, she took his head, Holofernes' head, out of her bag, and they put it on a spike. The following morning, when Holofernes' top advisor came to go get him, his top servant came to get him, wake him up, he found the headless body of his master, which sent panic and commotion throughout the entire encampment, and all the soldiers ran off, and they all lived happily ever after. If you don't know that story, my point is, if you don't know that story, once you get into purgatory, the hell is this guy? As a matter of fact, if you never even read the Tanakh, who the hell's King Saul? Who's the hell's King Rehoboam? Who the hell are these guys? Earlier, when I was talking about when David was dancing down the streets, when they brought the ark to Jerusalem, his wife, Micah, who said to him, "You can't be doing this. This is not a kingly thing. Kings shouldn't be dancing in the streets." Micah was the daughter of King Saul. I believe, my lord, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that she was David's first wife. King Saul had tasked David with bringing him the heads or the foreskins of 1,000 Philistines. And David did it with ease. And he brought Saul the 1,000 heads and or 1,000 foreskins. And as promised, Saul gave his daughter Micah to David for wife. Why give myself a pat on the back? I'll take it. Thank you, my lord. I love you too. Yeah, I love being humble. The Hesed of Chod. The love of humble. The love of humility. That's reminding me of something that Rabbi Jacobson had written, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Hold up. Got it on my phone. Humility brings love because it gives you the ability to rise above yourself and love another. Arrogance in the guise of love means loving yourself. Or what is even worse, making others a part and an extension of yourself and your self-love. Now, here's a problem with that. This is my problem with that, Rabbi Jacobson. As it's written by our sages of blessed memory, the commandment, love thy fellow like you love yourself, is the most important commandment of all the commandments, and everything else in Torah is just commentary. So no, arrogance is not a matter of self-love. Arrogance is the opposite. You need people to love you. You need people to look at you. Look how great I am. Look at me. I don't need people to tell me how great I am. I already know how great I am. I know that I'm great because Hashem, the Lord our God, makes me great. He makes me perfect. What that says, this goes back to that original question of, should we hold ourselves back for the sake of not coming off as arrogant to other people? Because what you're saying here is, if you love yourself, you're arrogant. And that's a bad thing. And God forbid you make other people an extension of this self-love that you have for yourself. When God tells us, commands us, demands of us to love ourselves. Well, don't love yourself more than you love other people. Well, how do you know? How do you know where that balance is? How do you know where that balance is if you don't go to the left or to the right? How do you know where the Goldilocks zone? How do you know where the Goldilocks zone is if you don't know where the extremes are? How do you know you're going in a straight line? How do you know you're even going in a straight line? Because it's not. What am I seeing? What am I seeing in my mind? I'm seeing a man walking in a giant circle, thinking he's walking in a straight line. His perception shows him that he's walking in a straight line. But if we look at the top down, from an aerial perspective, we see this guy walking in a big circle. How you doing, my friend? So, the only way to really know that we're walking the straight path is to veer off of it from time to time. And at the same time, how fucking arrogant of us to think that if we do steer off the path, that it's of our own design, that we did it. If I steer off the path, if I steer off to the left or the right, that's because that's what God needs me to do. I can't lose the Derek. I can't lose my Derek. That's not possible. The only way that's possible is if I believe that God isn't in control of my life. And the only reason that God would not be in control of my life is if I did not offer up to Him my free will so that He can be in control of my life. Because what the hell do I need to be in control for? Why do I need to be in control? It's His universe. The only reason I would need to be in control is if I wanted to do things my way. And as we know, thank you, Isaiah, Prophet Isaiah, peace be upon you. His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. We don't know. We don't know. We're too stupid. That's why we need a guide. That's why we need God to guide us. Or maybe that's why we all need Mashiach to guide us for. Because Mashiach's going to know better than all of us. He's going to know better than me. That's for goddamn sure. Actually, no. The only one that knows better than me, Mashiach does not know better than me. God knows better than me. Right? I'm not waiting for Mashiach. I'm being Mashiach. Because Mashiach knows better. Mashiach knows better than to think that he's the one that's in control. Mashiach's gonna be the most humble motherfucker. Yeah, bet your ass I'm humble. I've never accomplished anything. Everything in my life that would be considered an accomplishment of mine is actually an accomplishment of God. Because I'm not smart. I'm not as capable. I'm not omnipresent. I don't know the past, present, and future all at the same time. My brain ain't that. My mind isn't that expansive. I mean, I know my own past, but that's a whole other story. Like, I mean, I can't say I don't know my own future either. I know that one day this body's gonna die. And I know one day that this soul's gonna be reborn in another body. So, I mean, I guess I know some things. I know what I'm gonna be doing when I get home, barring any external circumstances getting in the way. It's only an hour and a half? I feel like, how the hell do I do this for 2 hours? You know what, maybe that's not a good thing. Let's just go home, because I want to get started on work. Because we got a lot to do today, and if we have time to come out later, then we have time to come out later, but... I don't have any more cigarettes either, Lord. And you know, I had an interesting vision this morning. Because I was bumming cigarettes off of Marco for a while. And I hate asking that dude for cigarettes. Because I only talk to him when I need cigarettes. But the vision I saw this morning, the vision that you showed me this morning, was that you had me buying those cigarettes for these past 3 weeks so that I could break the habit of asking Marco for a cigarette. And being that I only necessarily come outside to smoke, otherwise I would sit in that fucking room all day just writing. We now have a different habit. Because we're on 3 weeks with this, yeah? Maybe 4 weeks. I don't know. Daily recording is what I mean. I believe, if I remember correctly, we got started in the beginning of tourist season, which was 3 weeks back. I think it was like a day or two before the first third quarter moon in Aquarius, which was the week before the Taurus new moon. So 3 weeks. That sounds about right. Second Passover. Second Passover is for the sake of those people who weren't able to do the Passover sacrifice the first time. So when the community went to Moses and said, what about those people who are physically incapable of making their Passover sacrifice due to being in quarantine or being on travel? What about those people? I don't know. Let me go check with God. God, what do you want to do about those people that physically can't do a Passover sacrifice on Passover night? Well, what we're going to do is, in the second month of Iyar on the 14th day, we'll make a special occasion we'll make a second Passover for those people who couldn't partake in first Passover. This way, there's no excuse. If you can't make it on the first day, on the first Passover, here's the second Passover approximately 1 month later. I said of HUD. What? Can we expand on this anymore? The love of humility? Humility should bring love to another, right? Is that how he said it? Is that how Rabbi said it? Yeah, we'll turn this around. We'll make this really godly. Humility brings love because it gives you the ability to rise above yourself and love another. Right, the only way that's not blasphemy is if the other that he's talking about is you. Can I rise above myself to love you more than I love myself? Do I have the ability to rise above myself to love you more than I love myself, like David loved himself loved you more than he loved himself? I think so. I love you. I love you more than two of me combined. I believe. Well, that's why I said that I'm like the most humble person ever, because everything I do, I give credit to you. Every bad thing that's ever happened to me was actually a good thing that you were doing for me. Thank you, Lord, for you have acted with wrath towards me. I love it. Like yesterday when I passed out in church. What the hell was that? I wore my Rabbi Jesus socks. And when I remember when I was walking up to the church, I saw the priests all huddled outside taking selfies. And I was hoping they were going to see my Rabbi Jesus socks. But then it was during the consecration of Mary where I couldn't follow along with what they were saying. I couldn't bring myself to do it because... Should I do that? Fuck it, I'll do it tomorrow. This is more important. Right, they were saying about how Mary was the mother of God, but that's no. I can't say that. I understand why they're saying it. I just can't say that. Mary's the mother of Rabbi Jesus. I definitely don't think I would say that she's the queen of heaven. Maybe she's a queen of heaven. For there would be many. I would imagine that you have many wives, yeah? But you are the father mother, so it's not like... right. So I found myself stuck. But then at the same time, I was having that, I don't know what the hell that was. It felt like a panic attack, but it wasn't a panic attack. I just saw everything was getting really bright. And I've had that happen to me before, but not during a spiritual experience like that. Well, I'm trying to think of what was going through my head. Again. Because I remember connecting with... I remember trying to connect to the Nefet, to the Neshama of Mary. Because that's a aspect of the Shekinah that I never really thought to connect with, you know? And I started thinking about things. I started thinking about my own mom. I started thinking about my connection with Rabbi Jesus. And then I started thinking about my mom's connection with Mother Mary. And then it was just like I was starting to get the cold sweats. Everything was getting bright. And I tried to shut my eyes going, I love this. Thank you. Give me more. 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 Until finally I had to sit down and just like try to breathe. And then the next thing I knew, there was people around me. But they were Christian folks, so I can't explain to them. I can't explain to them that I'm trying to connect. That I'm connecting with the Shama, the Shekinah of Mother Mary. What? This is no. Well, I think your blood sugar. Did you eat? I saw you walking earlier today. Maybe you were just dehydrated. I know, all the things. You're all right. Every single one of you's right. Just leave me alone. Let me try to figure out what the hell's going on. But after the sermon was over, again, everybody started crowding around me and asking me questions and telling me what was wrong and what I needed to do. But then the priest came over, which I didn't mind. I mean, I did like the attention, but I did notice that I don't know his name, but the Nigerian priest. He looked and he goes, "Oh, I like your socks." Yes. So the thought I was having, and I said this to my mom last night. Hey, my lord, you can confirm this for me. Did you have that happen just so black priests could see my socks? Is that why? I mean, if so, I don't mind. I thought that was pretty funny. So I remember when he said that, I laughed to myself, inside, on the inside. What does that have to do with being humble? And the love of humble? Oh, you better believe that. Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually a really good point. As a matter of fact.
Y'all ready?
As a matter of fact.
You
want to talk about being humble?
You ready?
A Jew wearing Rabbi Jesus socks. Yeah, I definitely, you know, my lord, I'm giving myself a pat on the back for that. Because I was hesitant to do it. But then I thought, you know what? Let me rise above myself for a minute. My mother got me these Rabbi Jesus socks, so why don't I honor her? Because I'm doing her a favor right now by even coming to church. She had to work, and she asked me if I could go to the Mother Mary ceremony for her. And Mary is a Jew, so I don't have a problem with that. Jesus is a Jew, so I don't have a problem with it. Plus, it's my mom, so I don't have a problem with it. Plus, I know the people at the church, so I don't have a problem with it. Make Christianity Jewish again. That's what I'm about. I have no problem honoring Rabbi Jesus. What I have a problem with is worshiping Rabbi Jesus. That ain't gonna fucking happen. The only way I'm even gonna serve Rabbi Jesus is if it's a service to you, my Lord. You want me to wash that nigga's feet? I'll wash that nigga's feet, but I do it for you. Because everything I do is for you. But I ain't calling some Jew lady the mother of God. Sorry. But I mean, well, thank you. I mean, I can understand why they would think that, though. Why they would perceive it that way. Not just why they would perceive it that way, but why they would verbalize it that way. Because Rabbi Jesus did open the eyes of the Gentiles to you. And that being that he illuminated the Gentiles to your glory and your greatness, and she is his mother, from a sense, we could say that she is the mother of the man that brought us God, that brought God to the world, where the rest of the rabbinical congregation would have, well, where the rest of the rabbinical congregation built a fence around Torah, Rabbi Jesus was trying to attempting to break that fence down. Well, I think by his time the fence wasn't even built, I believe. And had he not done what he done, would Torah be... There's the Septuagint. Yeah, I know there's a Septuagint, but... technically the Septuagint doesn't even... Does anybody even use that thing? What are the Greek Orthodox congregation? What do they use? That's all right. Yeah, but I was saying, you know, that was incredibly humble of me. Is that my mom? I think so. That was incredibly humble of me to Oh, you were? Oh. All right. I'll cut that off.